monthly. In fact, after a while, in my early days, people thought I was from Buffalo because I was up there every weekend bowling something.
Mm. Well, the beauty of satellite dish. That's okay. That's how I watch that. Um, so what was your best moment on tour?
Well, I mean, I think you've already alluded to it. The
Mhm.
day in Erie, I mean, how can you look past a day in your hometown when you get to put on, I guess, the greatest exhibition that's it's been on national television? Um,
Mhm.
I mean, I had my family there. I had all
Mhm.
my friends that came out. In fact, we had 4,500 people in the Civic Center that day
Mhm.
for the show. So you can't write a much better script than that.
Right. Ah, that I mean, that was an awesome day. I actually watched it last night on YouTube to get ready for this. Yeah. 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 It's a great show and still a great memory. What was your worst moment on tour?
Um, my worst moment on tour was in my early days. My first couple of years on tour, I was just trying to make it. Again, I went in there with little experience. I was trying to figure out, uh, how to be more competitive. And
Mhm.
here it was at Royal Scott Lanes in Lansing, Michigan, was
Mhm.
our last stop of the fall tour. And again, young, trying to make it on tour. You don't have a lot of money.
Mhm.
And here we were at the last tournament of the season, right before Christmas, and I'm going into my last game, and I need whatever the game was, 210 or something to cash, and I left six solid nine pins
Mm.
that game and missed cashing by a pin, and so I bowled a great game, and I had everything on the line for me as a kid. $1,000 would have gone a long way, and I came up one pin short, and so I lived through Christmas, in that misery because
Oh, you there?
yep,
Okay. Um, okay, I'm sorry. Did I cut you? I didn't mean to cut you off. You,
nope.
yeah, okay. Um, so when, every time a bowler makes a TV show, the goal is to win. When you made the show in Erie, in '96, what was Friday night like for you? What were you thinking the scores were, for you to win? Like if you were gonna be like, okay, I'm the number. I think you were the number 5 or 4 seed. You bowled the first match. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm
Um,
pretty sure you didn't see the scores being what they were.
oh, not even close.
Right.
Not even close. It had been 11 years that we had bowled in my hometown. I wasn't a touring player through the first 3 or 4 years that the tour was in town. But of course, it was the biggest thing for me each and every year, uh, either before I went out on tour full time again or even when I was out on tour, right? So making the show there was number one, and just making the show in '96 for me it was finally, and after having 7 shots at it, I made a TV show there. So I was excited just to be able to get up in front of my hometown and be able to have a chance to win the title. I had gone from 11th place to 5th place in
Mhm.
the last 8 games of match play.
Mhm.
And Pete Weber, when I got up at a 10th, he needed a strike to go by me and left a 4 pin. So it was a nail biter for me.
Mhm.
Got on the show. I knew I had a heck of a lineup to bowl against,
Mhm.
all Hall of Fame bowlers, right? So
Mhm.
my thought was to go in there, bowl as good as I can, and honestly, hoping for the best. We went into that day in practice. The scores didn't look like they were going to be high.
Yeah.
Myself, Randy Peterson were the only right-handers on that show, and the left lane had a big hang spot, meaning
Mhm.
that if we got the ball out a little bit, it would wash out. It wouldn't even try to hook back. So we really thought that we weren't going to be spending too much time, on that show. He was
Mhm.
leading, but he wasn't going to be holding the trophy, and he basically just said, "Hey, at least you made the show. Good luck." And my mentality was 220 would be good.
Mhm.
That's how I went into that show, and the lights came on. 220 would be good. And after I had the front four, I'm like, well, all right. Well, I got 220 going. That's good. So there was never a thought that I would go in and average 282 for the 4 games.
Yeah. So before I can't believe I did this before we started. Should have mentioned when I made the announcement that you were going to be on. There was a woman who I got in contact with, Chris LeClaire, who was married to Gary LeClaire, who she said you guys bowled together, you and Gary. He passed away in 2022. She couldn't remember what you guys bowled, but yeah, she said that you guys had a lot of good memories together, and yeah, so
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing about the bowling community. You look at how many people you've come in contact with and how much time you spent around those people because you've for the love of the game. And yeah, you remember guys like Gary that you've got to bowl with and spend time with, and you look forward to kind of getting together each Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever league night is.
Sure.
Or when you get to a tournament, you're looking for the guys kind of hang out and say, hey, so yeah, that's sad to hear. And unfortunately, as I get older, I unfortunately hear more and more of that. I had of what I consider a good friend just 2 days ago passing away, Jim Doty, the great host for us in Indianapolis at Royal Pin Woodland. And so it happens more and more often, unfortunately.
Yeah. And Jim Doty, I just found that out today, and Adam just said, Bob, I guess you heard about the passing of Jim Doty. What was your favorite story about him before I let you answer that? Jim Doty, I knew him from, I never met him, but I knew him from, he owned the Royal Pin Centers in the Royal Pin in Woodland and a few other centers. What was your favorite Jim Doty story?
Well, so I was young, just coming out on tour, and Jim was from Pennsylvania originally, and I was a Pennsylvania kid coming out on tour. And his mom and dad would come and watch me just because I was from Pennsylvania. His mom and dad would sit behind me every game and root me on. And I'll be just getting behind this kid from PA that was there for the week.
Wow.
Always make that happen. That was mom and dad would come in for it. He would always, ask me, whatever I needed while I was there. And so, yeah, we had that kind of relationship, and, that's going back 40 years.
Yeah. It's a very sad loss. Rest in peace, Jim Doty. And our thoughts are with family, friends, everybody that knew him. What was, when you were on tour, did you ever have a moment where there was any self-doubt as a professional bowler?
Yeah, pretty much any block that I didn't bowl well in. If I had one block that I didn't bowl very well, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Right. No, the doubt came really early on when I was trying to make it. It took me to my third season. I was bowling into PTQs back then. They were hard to get out of. There was much larger numbers there is now for the amount of spots. And you can see, if you've been reading anything about the PTQs, there's been a lot of people complaining about how difficult just that is. It's a tournament within itself just to get to bowl the tournament. And that's exactly what I grew up doing. And so I didn't get to bowl a lot of the events, 50-50, because I was having to go through the PTQs every week. It took me to my third year to make a TV show. And so there was a lot of self-doubt through that time. I knew I was young. I had a sponsor that was willing to put me out for an extended period of time, but I had doubt. I'm like, well, maybe I'm not good enough. But once I was able to become an exempt player and bowl every week, there was a big weight lifted off of that. And you could just go out there and just bowl. And, obviously that took a different direction once I had that opportunity, because then I actually had a career doing it.
Yeah. So I interviewed Danny Wiseman actually last Monday, and he wanted me to say this to you. He said, yeah, when you talk to Bob, ask him about the comment that he made about having needing better hair to carry. Pretty good carry in
That's funny.
'96. Yeah,
That's funny.
yeah.
I think it was 2001 out in Medford, Oregon. I
2003. Yeah,
pulled against them on TV. 2003.
yeah.
Okay, 2003. And I honestly didn't even know or think about it. You have a mic on, and I was
Yeah,
just I had a very frustrating game against them.
yeah.
I missed, messengers missing every shot. Smashed 10
Mhm.
pins, 4 pin
Yeah.
wiggling, but not falling. I'm like, I get so frustrated, and
Mhm.
I just made a comment out of frustration, and I never knew if Danny had even known that comment came out because I found out that it was you could hear it on mic,
Mhm.
but it was not maybe a month ago. Within this past month, he sent me a link and he goes, "Hey man," he goes, "I agree. I had bad hair." And he just got a chuckle out of it. And I said, "Yeah, that was probably not the best thing I've ever done in my life." And he's like, "That's fine." He goes, "I mean, I just thought it was funny. Thought I'd send it to you." So
Yeah.
yeah, we were good friends for many years as well. A great competitor, and in the heat of the moment,
Mhm.
you know, kind of
Yeah,
lost
sure.
my cool. But yeah, I made a comment about his hair.
Yeah. So when you have a wireless mic, can we hear you if we were sitting in the like? How do we hear you? Is it over the loudspeaker like everything else, or is it just, or do we hear you at all? Do you know?
No, that's really just for TV.
Okay. Yep. Sure.
Yeah. So, and honestly, I hated miking up because you'd have to put this mic in your back pocket.
Right.
They'd put the wire through your shirt and up through and onto your collar. And so you felt this wire and you felt this
Mhm.
thing in your back pocket, and something you weren't, normal. It wasn't normal, when you were bowling. So I was always conscious that it was there, of course, but, and I really didn't say things collectively over the
Right.
years. I never made any bad comments, but that one was one.
Oh, it's priceless. It's yeah. Well, I mean, it looked like a cell phone too. I mean, it looked like, yeah, cell phone in the back pocket.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Did you feel there was an opponent on tour that you could beat a lot?
You know, there were a few guys you felt like you you tended to win, you beat more often than not. But I don't know that I can really think of one that really stands out. Though I can think of some of the guys that when I came to bowling against them for a title were tough to beat. I remember those ones,
Mhm.
the ones I couldn't beat. But uh, I don't really have anyone that stands out that I felt like they could not beat me. You know.
Yeah. Um, did did you have anybody that you felt had your number on tour?
TV on TV, Walter Ray had beat me for a handful of titles.
Mm.
Norm Duke took a couple titles from me, and yeah, it just seemed like no matter when I bowled them for a title, they always had a pretty good start out of the gate, albeit a 4 or 5 bagger, and it's just like every time I bowl this guy, he comes out with a 5 bagger.
Mm.
So but I had some great matches right to the 10th with them most often. So
Mm. So yeah, in 2003, Mika Koivuniemi, it seemed like he was on in Windsor Locks, Connecticut. He could have very easily beat your 3 game scoring record. Did you think that he would uh, break that? Or
well, I mean, certainly he posted the first 2 games that would lead you to
Mhm.
believe that it was up for grabs. And but I mean, there was a lot of. I mean, that's 850 is still a pretty lofty number, right? What did he end up with? 820 something.
He shot 300, 277, and 259,
All right, so okay, 36, 836.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
but I mean, even if he had 279, again, I guess he could have beat me, but it's still a lot to bowl on TV,
Sure.
And today, with the transition that you see with 2-handers and just the oils that they use today, they're putting more volume down. You see a lot of urethane used again. It makes it really tricky and tough through transition to continue to strike that much. And for me, I bowled against left-hander those first 3 games. So I had my own transition, and I got to make my own moves as I moved through. But when you have another person on your side kind of messing the lane up or, transition the lane with you, you're more apt to have some mishaps along the way. And with the record that I did post for 4 games, you could only afford, 1 or 2 mishaps, and then you'd have to strike every other shot. So I feel confident that will hold up for a long, long time.
Oh, I think so too. I think I think it'll. I don't think it'll ever be broken. What did you think, real quick? What did you think about the U.S. Open and how that was handled? Like as far as the format, the oil patterns, and everything like that.
Back then or now?
Now, this year's.
Well, I mean, they're trying to make it as challenging as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So coming out with different patterns every day. They have recycled some of those patterns. So if you've been to the U.S. Open more than once, you would have seen some of those patterns or things that are very close to the same pattern. So experience definitely helps you there. But when we bowled them back in the day, it was whatever pattern they decided was going to be there for the week.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is that we bowled a lot of games without re-oil. So, they've kind of gone away from doing that because the rev rates are so much higher. There's no lane left. And so they try to trick them up. They certainly, it seems, I guess they just want to make it the biggest challenge bar none. And then U.S. Open's always been that, right? If you go back to what used to be the All-Star tournament, which is what was the tournament prior to changing it to the U.S. Open, it was a 100-game tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they bowled forever and ever. And so it was a tough man contest really at the end of it. And you had multiple winners in that. So we don't have tournaments that can last that long. I don't think proprietors want us in their center that long, right? They give up a lot of business when we're there. But I think it would be cool to have it. I would like to see it happen one more time. Something like that, 100 game test. Today, the test is more about tricking up the patterns.
Yeah. So you want to see 100 games plus TV or 100 games including TV?
Well, I mean, make it 99 and put the last one on TV, the top 2 bowl for the title if you want to show it. Yeah. But I think the 100 games, total pins and wins is, that's fair.
So hello to Stephen F. He says, tell us about your 300 formula since you're the original Mr. 300, most 300s in USBC history. How many do you have now?
I honestly don't know what the number is. I know that it's over 160. Wow. So, but other than that, I mean, I haven't really bowled league most of those years either. A lot of that was on tour or in PBA competition.
Mm-hmm. All right.
As far as the formula, I think when you start seeing the lane and the lane is playing well, I think there's nothing to fear at that point. I think the lane, you got the right ball in your hand. The lane is playing the way you want. So if you're ever going to be loose, it should be when you have that kind of a look on the lanes. And that's just how I feel when I get out there. I know what I have, and I just got to go through the process. And I think that's probably helped me a lot in just thinking along those lines and not thinking so much about, oh my God, it's a 300, as much as I got everything in front of me. How can I mess this up?
Yeah. We got 8 people, around 8 to 10 people watching. Definitely fire those questions. We're more than happy to answer them. How old were you when you were bowling with your style that you have today?
It was right when I started a tour that I made the change. Okay. I had watched Wayne Webb, who was the player of the year before, and he was kind of the same height as me, and he was having a lot of success. He could do a lot of different things with a bowling ball, and I'm like, I've never tried that. And so I've seen other players like that, but I was kind of an imitator of Marshall Holman growing up. I did have that everything kind of set up along those lines, but never just one-handed, right? So I tried it. It felt very natural quickly, and I felt like I didn't have timing problems by doing it. So it was a natural for me to do it, and of course, still doing it today.
Yeah, definitely. I tried it and I think I hit my knee, but I couldn't do that. That's what you guys do on tour, man. That's difficult. 99 US Open, that was a different tournament. Like, they've never done a format like that before. You beat Jason Couch 230, 231 to 215.
Right.
And he opened in the ninth. You needed a strike to win. Would you rather need a strike to win or make a spare?
I would rather have a strike to win every time.
Okay.
I that's what you live for.
Mhm.
You live for those opportunities to get up there and throw a strike.
Mhm.
Not to get seven spare. So absolutely want to go up there and throw a strike.
So what did you think of the format that year? So they had the 56 games plus you had bracket, which you were the number one seed, so you didn't have to do the bracket. But that's the day I was there during those brackets. And what did you think of that format? Do you remember much of that?
I thought it was great since I didn't have to bowl
Yeah.
them. I was sitting there going, okay, these guys are all trying to get to the top spots, and I just have to sit here and wait for them. So
Yeah.
it was a nice thing to have. I had made TV show before in the U.S. Open, and I bowled a pretty good game and lost. And I was just hoping I'd get back to U.S. Open and have a chance to win it as top seed. Of course, I had a pretty good chance to come home with the big title.
Yeah, good. So what is the best thing about being a professional bowler?
Well, personally, as a player, knowing that I'm bowling against the greatest bowlers in the world. So in the world, I mean, we have people that travel from all over the world to bowl, and we have had some that made it to the tour back in the day when I was there full time. But to know that you're bowling against the best and you have to bowl, amazing to beat the best. So, I've never been a guy who really cared very much for getting pins handed to me to bowl. I always felt like I wanted to earn it, right? Mm-hmm. Every pin. Any sport I've played, I've always felt like I just have to work harder. If I can't win, I just have to work harder. And so the PBA is just that. I mean, there's no slack. You got the best guys that throw it, and they can do anything with a bowling ball. And it's a great environment to be in. And when you're not in it, you miss it because it's just a different feeling getting up there and lacing them up with the best.
Yeah. Maria wants to know, what is the best advice, best piece of advice do you have for young tour players except for practice?
Well, listen, take advantage of the opportunity you have. It's easy to get caught up in a little clique and hanging out with the guys and doing those things. And that can kind of take over a little bit, but being focused truly on, what the reason why you got out there was because for that, certainly, feeling like you've never arrived, continuing to work at it. Some people, they seem to get to a place and they think, well, I've had some success, and they start doing things like golf and other things where they used to be practicing during those times. So I don't know why that changes, but the reason you got there is because you worked hard.
Okay. What is the worst part about being a professional bowler?
Being away from home. Easy. I had family when I was young, and I hated not being home or having them out with me traveling. And they came out as much as possible, but I just, it was lonely out there, making those phone calls home every night.
Yeah. So in 2002, you go back to Erie. This time you're at Eastway Lanes and you're doing pretty well. You have a 5-bagger, and then they go to commercial. You come out of commercial, you leave a Greek church. Is that the hardest shot to throw after a commercial break on TV?
It's a great question. I've always wanted to answer that one because yes, because here you are. Here's the thing: when you bowl on TV, you have people telling you, okay, 30 seconds, before you even throw your first shot, and you're there and you're getting ready, and they're like, okay, 20 seconds, and then you start getting up on your approach, you're getting ready, and they'll say, okay, go, and they want you to go immediately. You're like, well, hold on, I've been waiting for the shot. So here you are with a 5-bagger. You've got to, you're thinking, I've got this going, and it breaks your stride. The rhythm that you had, you getting up there and bowling. Now you got to sit there and wait, and you're waiting, and you're waiting. Okay, 60 seconds, and you're waiting for them to call the shot, and you get up there, and honestly, after waiting and going through all the commercials, you feel rushed when they finally say go. Mm-hmm. And it's happened more than once to me coming out of commercials because it does feel like you wait forever, and then immediately they're telling you get up and bowl. Mm-hmm. So it's not really when you're prepared, as you would normally prepare. Mm-hmm. You watch a shot, you're watching them, you're going to get up. You get up, when you're ready to get up, and you just do it within your own time. But yeah, coming out of commercial breaks, it's almost like you're forced to get up there, when they call it. So,
do you think they should have increased the shot clock a little bit? I mean, listen, I'm not saying take, hey, let's have a 2-minute shot clock. But I mean, do you think 25 seconds was too much, not enough, just right?
Well, I never even came close to the 25 seconds. I get up there. I didn't take much time. I get up, I set myself, and I would go. Even though it felt like I was taking time, when I watch myself, I take very little time up there. In fact, I'm not sure how I could possibly take 25 seconds getting a shot off. But that being said, if you're bowling against somebody that likes to slow play intentionally, which some players did, they like to slow your pace down. Let's just bowl. Get up there and bowl. And again, just no games. Just bowl. That's how I always felt. If you feel like you have to play the game, then you're questioning if you're good enough.
Right.
So just get up there, bowl your game. Let me bowl my game, and whatever happens, happens.
Right. So in that telecast, you're playing straight up the lane. It's basically Cheetah before it was named Cheetah or Pattern E. And then in Erie in 96, you're opening up the lane. You're probably swinging it from like what I would say 15 to about 10 or something like that. What would you, if they let you oil the lanes every single week, what shot would you rather play, down and in or open it up a little bit?
Well, if you would have asked me early in my career, it would have been opening up. And then I worked so hard on becoming a straighter player that I would absolutely have it no oil inside of 6-7 board and let me play the gutter, because I could throw it hard and I keep it on line. It definitely became a strength of mine. In the early days when you said Pattern E, it was that. It was they had patterns that played distinct parts of the lane. And when you played Pattern E, there was no oil inside. It was very flat. And when the Cheetah came out, it started like that. And then they started building more volume in for the guys that hook the ball. They can actually move in a little bit off of it. And to me, that was like, well, now you're trying to help somebody play better on a pattern that was designed to play a certain part of the lane. So absolutely hard and straight from out.
So when you were bowling, when you were doing what you did in 96, was that at the time, was that your A game?
No, I can honestly say by then I could throw it straight as anybody on tour, and I could hook it as much as anybody on tour. Whether I had to throw it slower to hook it as much as Robert Smith, I was still one of the higher rev guys on tour. And I think, there was a few of us that I felt were really, really able to do a lot of different things with the bowling ball. So I really didn't have a favorite at that time. But, a lot of people thought I was a guy that hooked the ball.
Yeah. So you had a good relationship with Emleto Monticelli. Steven says in Emleto's recent book, he gave you the book is called Believe Achieve. He gave you some major props in helping him adjust to tour life and living in America. He says you protected him throughout the early days and he had trouble finding friends, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that, but you seem like a
Well,
nice guy.
what happened was that he didn't speak the clearest of English,
Mhm.
and I always tease him because he went to Mississippi to learn English, and I'm like, well, that isn't probably the clearest English, that people are used to hearing. But no, honestly, he just came from Venezuela, had learned English, and because he was a pretty good bowler, it was a good reason for some people not to like, the fact that here's this kid, from another country coming in and bowling well, and they would pick on him because of his how he said different words or whatever, and
Mhm.
they almost try to. It seemed like there was enough people there that were trying to push him away, like, hey,
Mhm.
go back home. And I don't know. I was never very keen on people that were either bullies or that like to pick on those that were kind of, I wouldn't say defenseless, but people
Mhm.
that they were really taking advantage of.
Mhm.
For me, that doesn't work very well.
Mhm. And he was probably one of my first favorite Pro Bowlers. Like it was the accent, it was he's a foreign, like Emleto Monticelli. What kind of name is that? Oh my God, he's from Venezuela. Oh my God, look at his style. I mean, he was one of my favorites back then just because of the way he spoke and the way he carried himself. I mean, I couldn't do his style if somebody paid me $1 million, but I mean, when I got to meet him in 2015, that was huge. That was a big deal. I love him, Leto. He's glad to see he's back with Brunswick. He's been for 3 years. What a guy.
Yeah, we were been great friends for many years. I would say that without question, that he has gotten away with the least amount of fines for saying words that would get you fined
Mhm.
because he said it in Spanish his whole life. So he'd sit there and I know what he's saying. I hear him saying it, and he would never get a fine slip for doing it because it wasn't in English. So I used to always give him a hard time about that too. I'm like, if I said half of what you said, I'd be broke, you know?
Yeah. So they can't fine him because, hey man, I know what you said. I know it wasn't in English, but I know what you said. Here's a fine of whatever it was. They can't do that.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, back in the 80s, they didn't know, but really not like today, right?
Yeah.
Spanish is much more well known today.
Yeah. Um, is there more pressure being a head bowling coach or being a professional bowler?
Oh, there's no pressure as a coach, because you're delivering what you're delivering to the players, and you've trained them, and I guess you're more nervous as a coach because it's out of your hands, and you really want to see the kids do well. They work hard, and you want to see them succeed. As a PBA player, there truly were. I wouldn't say that you're bowling for your rent, but everything's on the line. It's
Mhm.
you. There's nobody else to help you, and there's difficult times that you have to work through mentally. And the end goal was at the very least, to come away that week with a check. Which was really getting your money back.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of pressure being a PBA player, especially when you have a family at home, to provide. So make my bad weeks cashes, and then make sure my big weeks are big enough to bring home the real money.
Mhm. So we're talking to Bob Lauren Jr. Everybody who's watching this, please do me a favor, like and subscribe. Definitely subscribe if you haven't check out past content and future content. Love doing this podcast. Started it a few months ago. Um, are you still bowling any PBA 50 events?
Yes, I bowled maybe half the events last year,
Mhm.
but I mean I have a little bit of a arthritic wrist now, and I'm just trying to work through that. When it's pain free, I feel like I can still bowl like I'm 30. but when it really hurts, I feel like I'm older than what I am. So
Mhm.
I want to bowl when I'm competitive, plain and simple.
Mhm.
So if I'm able to bowl, I will bowl as much as I can.
So I had Norm Duke on a couple weeks ago, and he does not bowl any after he stopped bowling. He literally stopped bowling. Um, when you decide that you're done bowling competitively, are you still going to bowl league? Or are you just going to be like, look, I am done, period?
I don't know that I ever want to just give it up. I
Mhm.
did stop bowling for a handful of years when I came off tour and I got into coaching. I worked for USBC, got involved a little bit with Team USA, did a lot on the coaching side. I really enjoyed doing that. And I really gave up bowling during that time until I was 49, and decided to get back into bowl a little bit and see if I can uh, go back, and bowl the PBA 50 stuff and have some fun. And it was fun, and certainly seeing everybody again made me realize how much I did miss it. So once I get to the point where I might not be traveling and bowling the PBA 50 or 60 events, I still feel like I'm going to have to do something. I'll bowl weekend tournaments at the very least.
Yeah. What was your last year on tour, and why was that your last year on the kids tour or whatever you want to call it?
Well, they changed the format, so we had new ownerships that came in, and they changed it from where we never bowled any qualifying games, that we went right into match play or head-to-head matches. And
Mhm.
the first year they did that, I'm halfway through the season. I'm second high average on tour, and I'm 40th in points because no matter how well I bowled, it felt or it seemed that I was unable to get through my best of 7 matches consistently, and not enough to get to the top where the money was very often. And so I'm like, man, I really don't think I want to do this anymore. They've taken away. I'm good at knocking pins down,
Mhm.
right? Obviously, I'm still doing that, being
Mhm.
second high average on tour. But if you were below 40th, you were not an exempt player the next year. And I really started losing the feel that this is anything that I want to continue to do for a while, until that did change eventually. But there was a period of time when guys were winning titles with very few games bowled,
Yeah.
and it really wasn't that you were beating the field; you were beating 4 bowlers.
Right.
So I don't know. It changed a lot. It wasn't what I grew up
No.
doing. Certainly wasn't the tour that I wanted to be part of.
Yeah. So, what was your favorite tour stop?
Well, I'd have to go right back to my hometown. In Erie, Pennsylvania, and people that still talk about it. It's like, oh my God, that was the biggest bowling event of the year. The
Mhm.
biggest fans, people
Mhm.
would be there. I mean, you couldn't walk into a place during practice session, and that didn't change until they made you leave after the TV show. So it's just the town I grew up in, big bowling town, small town, but we have, four people that live or from Erie that have won national titles. So a really strong bowling town for the size.
They made the fans leave after the TV show?
Well, you know what I'm saying. They hang out until they're told to leave, right? So
Mhm.
I'm just saying that they couldn't wait for the tour to come,
Mhm.
and you had to pretty much kick them out the door when it was over because everybody looked forward to it that much.
Right. Yeah. Um, what was your least favorite tour stop?
Oh boy, that's not an easy one either. I'm trying to think of a tournament that I never tended to bowl great in. I would think maybe the PBA national championship in Toledo.
Mhm.
It was on lacquer and something I grew up on, but for someone with higher rev rate and wanting to open angles up a little bit, it just wasn't conducive to that kind of bowling. And if you look back at Marshall Holman and Mark Roth, you're talking about, they had amazing careers, but they couldn't win the Triple Crown because that center and what they had to deal with playing on that lacquer for a while, and then just the characteristics of that center kept them from being Triple Crown winners. So I would have to say that I would have to say that one.
Yeah. So was
Winning event, and yet you didn't feel like you had an equal opportunity.
yeah. So I'm assuming lacquer, that must have been Imperial Lanes because Southwick had wood. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So okay. So we are going to do something called going flush in the pocket. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Where did the PBA never go that you wish they had?
Well, now that I've traveled the world enough, I would say Italy.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Go international more. I wish they would have had an international tour. We did go to Japan Cup, which was awesome. Going to Tokyo, went there 10 times probably, and got to Korea to bowl PBA event there. But I never got to go to Europe, and I love Europe. And of course, now you see the tour guys going over and bowling some events there. I wish I would have had that opportunity for sure.
Yeah. We are talking to the 2001 Japan Cup winner. Issues. Hey, you there, Bob?
Yep, you just froze.
Okay. Yeah. How did it feel to win the Japan Cup in 2001?
Awesome. That event was so well run. They put so much into it. It was steeped in history. There was they went through all the rituals, that made you feel kind of really kind of special being there and being able to experience the culture the way they presented it for us, and be able to win that one. There was always one of those where you were adorned with really nice gifts. Trophies were amazing. And so when you won that, you felt, you had to worry about how you're getting everything home, but the hardware was amazing. And they treat us like and no other. It was something very special. And so winning that was really cool.
Now, was that tournament was that all match play, the 32 bowlers, 16 from Japan and 16 from the US?
Yes, it was. Yep. They took top 16 off each tour, and you bowled round robin match play.
Okay. All right. So now we are going to go flush in the pocket, and which is just 12 straight questions. It's a perfect game. No ringing tens, no anything. And it's the easiest 300 you will ever bowl. What is your favorite music?
Well, I live in Nashville, so I do listen to a lot of country, but I also like alternative style music.
Okay.
New sounds.
Great. Check out my radio station. I actually run a country station online on the website, b105radio.com. Wanted to be in radio since I was 12. That was my second passion other than bowling. So, yeah, I'm a huge country guy as well.
Well, you might know a few guys that I get to bowl with on Tuesday nights then.
Oh, yeah? Who's that?
Jimmy Allen and Chuck Wicks.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know who they are. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What is your favorite food?
Italian.
Okay. Yep. Pasta, pizza, or just anything?
Man, anything that's authentic.
Okay. Do you put pineapple on your pizza? I do.
No, that wouldn't. No.
Okay. So, favorite hangout?
I like going to, around here we have live entertainment. So I love anywhere where they have live music.
Mm-hmm. That is awesome. Do you have a guilty pleasure?
Well, I blame it on my wife. She got me started on chocolate, and I think that's my guilty pleasure, chocolate.
There you go. That is good job, Stacy. I'm proud of you for that. That I'm a chocolate guy myself. Now, white chocolate, dark chocolate, milk chocolate, or just anything, all the above?
Yes.
Okay. There you So we talked about it off the air. How's your family doing? Your family's doing well?
Very fortunate. Our son Brandon is doing well in our hometown still. He has given us three granddaughters, so that keeps us, that keeps us going back to Erie a lot. Certainly, can't get enough of seeing them. So that's for sure. And what he does. Our daughter lives in New York City. She's the head fashion designer, and she's doing very well on her own. And we're just proud that the people they've become, and we just wish we could see them more often.
So that I'm having some internet problems. So is Brandon still? Is he still a chef? Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Is Brandon still a chef?
No, well, he still is, yes, because he makes some great meals for us when we're there.
Yeah.
The downside when you have a chef
Mm.
making the meal is if you're buying all the ingredients for him to make this meal, you have to buy everything fresh, all the spices, everything. It's amazing, but it can be expensive at the same time.
Good. Yeah, definitely. So number 7, night out or a quiet night at home?
Well, after COVID, it's tough to have just another quiet night at home.
Mm.
I like to get Stacy out. We like to go out and have a nice dinner. We like to again go out and listen to live music and be around people. I think COVID changed that for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I put favorite music in there twice, so I'll change that. Favorite bowling ball of all time?
Well, if I go with the record-setting day, I would have to go with the AMF Swirl.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think you kind of answered this, but do you go to concerts? What's your favorite concert that you've been to?
Well, I love so much music.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have a favorite one? I mean, the last one I went to was Jimmy Allen's. That was pretty awesome. I think really when I was younger, I got to see both Elton John and Billy Joel when they were doing the big stadiums, and I thought those are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I actually went there as a Billy Joel fan. I love Billy Joel and all that, but as far as an entertainer, you can't knock Elton John. He put on a great show. In fact, we went back with our kids to see Elton John, when they were young, because we enjoyed that performance so much.
Did you, by any chance, check out his final performance on Disney Plus?
I have not.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's see here. Best advice ever given?
As far as a bowling coach, and the one I grew up with in youth leagues, he'd always tell me, if you start thinking, you start stinking. So, and it's a lot of truth to that. You start overthinking what's going on, you're going to start bowling poorly. And so I think really as simple as that advice was, it's probably the best.
Yeah. Yep. When I get back to Maine, I'm going to be getting ready for my state tournament, and my goal is to win it, but I need to bowl the best 9 games that I can. But I definitely overthink. I don't know. How do you get past that?
Process. You practice one shot at a time.
Yep.
Stay in your process no matter what's going on.
Okay. So how do you want people to remember you?
Well, I guess everybody wants to be at least considered as a good person. And but I think I've gained a lot from bowling. And I feel that it would be important to me to have people remember me as someone who gave back to bowling. And I do a lot of things that I feel does give, with my coaching and putting on clinics and stuff like that. I love doing that, kind of spreading some of the information that I had to gather over time and freely giving it to help others bowl better. But a good family man as well.
Yeah, great. What are you binge watching right now?
You know, up until COVID, I
Mhm.
was a person that rarely watched TV. I liked
Mhm.
music. I listened to music a lot, but I really never sat much. I was always busy doing something. And
Mhm.
once we got to COVID, we started getting on all kinds of series, like Game of Thrones and those kind of series. And now my wife, she's like, "Hey, I found another. Let's watch this." So and we're on one right now, which is a little different. But I mean, we go into a lot of documentary stuff. I like
Mhm.
learning, about history and other things. So, I think anything that's I think
Okay.
we've engaged in all those.
Mhm. So that was Flush in the Pocket. Since he is so famous in the bowling world, does anybody have any last minute questions for Bob before we let him go? Just hang out just for a second here, just see if anybody has any. But no, I mean, really, thank you for doing this, and we'll just hang out for a second here. I really appreciate it. Been a fan for a long time.
Yeah, thanks for
So
having me on. I appreciate
yeah,
it, and good luck with this show. I think it's going to be great. You've got some good people that you brought up today on this show with having Danny and Norm, and you're off to a
yeah,
good start.
yeah. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Hey, listen, if send any if you had a good time, send your Brunswick pros or any pros that let them know, and because not a lot of them are easy to get a hold of, so send them my way. I would love to talk to them. Bob, thank you very much for your time, and my best to your family, and have a good night.
Thank you, Derek, for a great interview.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye now.
Bye now. So that was Bob Learn Jr. I know I kind of ended that kind of quickly, only for the simple fact that I didn't see any questions come in. But thanks, guys, for all your questions. Thank you, Stephen, Maria, and Adam. And thank you very much. So coming up, be on the lookout because we do have Dell and Carolyn Dorn Ballard coming up whenever is good for them. That'll happen as of right now. So it very well, there's a slim possibility it could be tomorrow night. So just be patient. We are working on that. And then on Wednesday is going to be a big one. It is going to be Martin Larson. It's going to be a little different though, because it is at noon on Wednesday, noon Eastern time on Wednesday. And we'll be talking to Martin. And so be on the lookout for that one. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe to the Flush in the Pocket podcast. It's Flush in the Pocket podcast on YouTube. Thank you and have a good night.